There is no red, white, or blue in this country. The only color that matters is green, because we live in the United Corporations of America. Welcome. Jordan Chariton live. Status Coup in the house. It is, Tuesday, December the 17th, the year 2024, in the United Corporations of America. And we have breaking news. I was not going to go live today, but I also wasn't expecting this indictment to be read by a grand jury in New York City. And great to have Zeynab back, because we talked about this yesterday. That there was murmurs and pundits on CNN talking about changing the definition of terrorism to charge Luigi Mangione, the alleged shooter of UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson, as a domestic terrorist. And he has officially been indicted by a grand jury, among other things, on the charge of terrorism. I don't even think slippery slope is the appropriate term. This is beyond that. And this is very dangerous. Whether you agree with what he did or not, a lot of people don't. I have been clear. I'm not condoning going around gunning down CEOs or anyone else, but I do understand his reasoning and the outrage of Americans, including our audience. But labeling him a domestic terrorist, I believe, is very dangerous and going to be reversed on all of us. So we'll get into that. First, Colin, if you could show the full screen here. My cameraman, John, came over to help fix my studio because I fucked it up. In an attempt to hang things up, I chipped the wall. So he's changed some things around here. So let me know in the live chat if you like the swapping of the flag and the coup flag. He has it up on puppet strings too. That's the behind the scenes you can't see. He's got the flag hanging by a string, and it's kind of cool. But let me know what you think of the flag swapped with the Status Coup flag, if you like it. And let me read first, and smash the like button, share this live stream so we can get it out to more people. More people that press the like button, the more people that will see this. Let me read you about the charges here. This is from CNN. Luigi Mangione has been indicted for the murder of UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson in Manhattan earlier this month, according to newly released court documents. Mangione faces an 11-count indictment, including 1 count of murder in the first degree and 2 counts of murder in the second degree in connection with the fatal shooting of Thompson. A Manhattan grand jury indicted Mangione of second-degree murder as a crime of terrorism. Let me repeat, as a crime of terrorism. Before we play the clip, Zeynab, are you surprised by this? And what are your thoughts on the adding in the terrorism charge?
I'm not surprised at all. Of course, he did have a manifesto, but honestly, I don't think that they would have charged him with terrorism had it not been for the fact of the outrage and outcry from the public and the reaction from the public. I think that's where this charge is stemming from. I think it's meant to be a chilling effect on those who, if he can be labeled as a terrorist, then feigning your outrage at the healthcare industry can be labeled as terroristic.
Right.
And I think it's a very, very slippery slope.
Yeah, I have a lot to say on this, but let's first play clips from the press conference. This was Manhattan Attorney District Alvin Bragg, who was the district attorney who brought the porn star charges against Trump. And the new police commissioner, Jessica Tisch, who is the daughter of a New York oligarch and billionaire, from the Tisch family, which is a famous and very, very wealthy family in New York. So I wonder how she became the police commissioner. Let's play. There's a couple clips, so we'll play some and then respond. First, let's play the police commissioner very, very fiercely scolding you, the American people, for praising Luigi Mangione.
As DA Bragg said, Luigi Mangione is now formally charged and indicted for murder. And let me be perfectly clear. In the nearly 2 weeks since Mr. Thompson's killing, we have seen a shocking and appalling celebration of cold-blooded murder. Social media has erupted with praise for this cowardly attack. People ghoulishly plastered posters threatening the other CEOs, with an X over Mr. Thompson's picture, as though he was some sort of a sick trophy. And yesterday, the New York Post reported that some extreme activists were circulating a deck of cards with other most wanted CEOs to be targeted for assassination. These are the threats of a lawless, violent mob who would trade in their own vigilantism for the rule of law that protects us all. Let me say this plainly. There is no heroism in what Mangione did. This was a senseless act of violence. It was a cold and calculated crime that stole a life and put New Yorkers at risk. We don't celebrate murders, and we don't lionize the killing of anyone. And any attempt to rationalize this is vile, reckless, and offensive to our deeply held principles of justice.
Our deeply held principles. And by the way, she is Jessica Tisch, the daughter of Jonathan Tisch, the oligarch and head of the Lowe's Lowe's Hotels chain. So he is also the co-owner, Jonathan Tisch, of the New York Football Giants. So I'm sure Jessica Tisch, just on her own merits, became police commissioner of New York. But she is the first female police commissioner. So we have that identity stuff going on. Listen, again, I hate to keep saying this. It doesn't, some people I've spoken to, blanket, don't condone murder, period. But they also kind of like Luigi Mangione, are not losing sleep over Brian Thompson. But Zeynab, I cannot help but think they are this fiercely reprimanding the public. They want to be the thought police, scolding everybody because it's one of their own. It's a member of the elite that was killed. And whether, this is all one, big group of elite, the politicians, the police who protect the politicians and capital, the lobbyists, the donors. I certainly did not see any press conference like that when Eric Garner was strangled to death by the New York police. And there was certainly no press conference when police were, acting as battering rams into pro-Palestine protesters, beating the living hell out of them, which we covered. John Farina, my cameraman, covered. There has not been a talking down to by the NYPD that fierce for working people harmed or minorities harmed.
That's right. And I think that she said it all there. I mean, that diatribe spoke to their intent. And their intent is to send a chilling effect to anyone who will speak right now about the healthcare industry being able to label as terrorism, just like the unfortunate arrest of the woman in Florida who dared to say depose, deny, defend to an individual denying her claim on a call. So I think that that coupled with this they're making an example out of him, and that way pundits can then for the next however long demonize anyone who has criticism of the healthcare industry and doesn't show mourning and remorse for the loss of Brian Thompson, or would show animosity toward, the corporate world and their current agenda of exploitation.
Right. And I got to say, I mean, for those of you that are new here, and we got a lot of new subscribers, so welcome if you're new here. I mean, this kind of seems like it's starting now, but we've been covering stories where they might not be charging people with terrorism, but they're sure reinventing the law. I give you Stephen Donziger, the human rights attorney who successfully went after Chevron the big oil company, who poisoned parts of the Amazon in Ecuador with oil. They got a lot of people sick there. People died. Donziger went after Chevron, won a historic judgment against Chevron for $9.5 billion. Excuse me, $9.5 million. And Chevron wouldn't actually pay the settlement. They used their money to go on a political corporate crusade against Donziger, which the U.S. courts, the judges had connections to Chevron, then put the lawyer under house arrest. So they didn't punish the company that poisoned water and land in Ecuador. They punished the lawyer. Now, they didn't charge him as a terrorist, but they sure treated him like one.
Yeah, house arrest for 3 years.
Yes, and then on top of house arrest, they put him in jail. We know what happened with Julian Assange. So it doesn't really matter if you're on the left, if you're on the right.
And he lost his licensure. For what? There was
exactly
completely faulty charges.
So that was the police commissioner scolding all of you. We'll get back to that in a minute, but I want to zero in on the actual terrorism charges because.
Oh, Jordan, can I add something really quick? You know, we've heard Trump talking about litigious activities to try him for whatever his supposed criminal acts were, and how, you know, the strong arm of the law is being used for political avarice. Then you've got avarice, and then you've got Joe Biden saying that Hunter Biden was targeted because he was his son. Well, aren't we seeing the litigious arm of the law being used right now in order to stamp out political conversations about the healthcare industry?
Absolutely.
Done to us, you will not hear someone like Donald Trump or Joe Biden criticize it. You'll hear them, in fact, support it more than likely.
And Zeynab, before I play the next clip, I would like to report another crime to you. Are you ready for this?
Oh, no.
We have almost 1,000 people watching, but only 300 people have pressed the like button. What the hell is going on, folks? Smash that like button. The more people that press like, the more people that will see this. This is breaking news. Subscribe if you're new here, but press that like button. So in addition to the heiress of the Tisch family, who is now the New York police commissioner, Jessica Tisch, in addition to her scolding you, the American people, for your shameful glee at the murder of a for-profit predatory healthcare CEO, the Manhattan District Attorney also spoke, and he was asked twice, can you kind of justify or explain the terrorism charges? Let's listen to his response.
Please elaborate on the terrorism theory that backs up the murder of the first count. What elements do you expect to be able to prove?
Sure. So, in its most basic terms, this was a killing that it was intended to evoke terror. And we've seen that reaction. The statutory elements we can go into, but its most basic term, that's what this is. This was not an ordinary killing, not to suggest that any killing is ordinary, but this was extraordinary, and the New York State Legislature has set out both the paths that we talk about, both the murder one and murder two, and this we allege is certainly squarely within those statutes, which talk about intending to do exactly what we saw happen.
What? He didn't say anything. He talked about the reaction to it. You can't charge an individual for the public reaction to what he did. That's not within Luigi's control, how the public reacted.
So a couple things. And he's going to say this later. You know what? Before I respond, let's play the other clip. So there's another clip where he's asked again about the terrorism charges, and he elaborates more. Let's play that, Colin.
Sure. And my point, the statute talks about attempts to influence or coerce a civilian population. The statute talks about intending to influence a policy of government, and it talks about seeking to put forth things sort of similar to that by murder. So the statute, the plain language of the statute is clear. Obviously, we we've charged it, the grand jury has voted on it, and we intend to go forward and prove it. But I think it does help to take a step back, and think about the proof in the case, some of the writings. I'm not going to get into too much of that, but and the actual reaction. In the middle of Midtown, the beginning of a busy day, tourists, commuters, business people, the intent was to sow.
So a few things. Number one, he mentioned the manifesto, right? First of all, the manifesto, in terms of manifestos of, supposed terrorists, this one was probably the most sane, calm ones I've read. It was very short. He stated some healthcare statistics. He also apologized to the police. In the manifesto, he actually complimented law enforcement, stating, for the most part, you do a commendable job. I'm paraphrasing. Secondly, I don't know many domestic terrorists or terrorists, period, that in the notes they found in his notebook, he said, first, I was thinking about bombing the conference. This was the investor conference that Brian Thompson was set to speak at for UnitedHealthcare. But I chose instead to do a targeted shooting because I didn't want to kill innocents. The point of terrorism, I don't care if it's foreign, domestic, is to kill as many people as you can. That's in part what creates terror. He, in his writing, again, even if you don't agree with him shooting Brian Thompson, and plenty of people don't, they agree. Plenty of people, you can have two thoughts at once. You don't agree with going around gunning down people, but you understand the outrage. I personally don't agree with going around gunning down CEOs because I think it will come back on us tenfold, not twofold, tenfold. If we start going around vigilante justice, trust me, you think what they did after 9/11 with the Patriot Act and taking away your civil liberties, that'll be nothing compared to what they will do if we start having mass vigilante justice. You can say, well, Jordan, look, this started a conversation and awoke a sleeping giant. It certainly did. But I am telling you, and we're already starting to see the ramifications of them charging him as a terrorist, it will be reversed on us. And they'll start charging you. They'll start charging people who open up a lemonade stand if they look at the cops the wrong way as terrorists.
They're already doing that. They're already doing that. I mean, we have, as we mentioned, the woman in Florida, Breonna Boston. She was arrested for domestic threatening, for terroristic threatening, for simply saying deny, defend, oppose on a call with an insurance representative.
Right.
And she didn't threaten them. She was frustrated because her claim was denied, and she simply said deny, defend, oppose. And it was reported, and the cop showed up at her house, and they wheeled her in and arrested her. This can completely ruin this woman's life. They used her as an example, and they're using Luigi as an example, and it's to set a chilling effect on all of us. And I think she really poses the example here. I mean, but we've also seen similar charges be pressed and be implemented to against pro-Palestine protesters, as we had talked about yesterday, and we may speak about again a little bit, against Cop City protesters, against Stop Cop City protesters, against, we saw them during the George Floyd protest. This is not new, and it is scary because I feel like it's escalating. Do you feel that way, Jordan?
Well, yeah, I was about to say, first of all, as we discussed yesterday, they were already charging peaceful protesters down in Atlanta who were protesting Cop City, which we covered on the ground. Tina Desiree Berg and John Farina, my cameraman, they went down there twice. They were charging people who were holding signs as domestic terrorists. They were charging people who ran from the police as domestic terrorists. And I don't really, I don't blame people for running for the police because they literally shot and killed an unarmed protester down there. If you're new here, you might not know anything about this because the corporate media barely reported. The Atlanta politicians, Democrats, were literally cutting down pristine forest in Atlanta to build a militarized police compound that was going to be doing cross-training with Israel's IDF. There was no reason for this. And there was protests for 2 years, peaceful protests, to stop the cutting down of this forest. And once it started getting national attention, they shot an unarmed protester named Tortuguita. Then they lied and said the protester was shooting at the cops first. Forensic evidence showed they shot this protester with the protester's hands up. And there was 56 gunshot wounds, I believe, on the protester.
Yes,
and then
we may cover this, but as of today, just a few minutes ago, just before we came on air, Jordan, the family of Tortuguita has filed a lawsuit against the Georgia police for the shooting.
So you have that. After that, you started seeing more protests down there against this, and they started. They charged dozens of people with domestic terrorism. We interviewed one of them. People were languishing in jail for weeks. They didn't even know they didn't even have official charges against them. They were not allowed to speak with lawyers. This is the kind of stuff you hear about in countries that America says are, authoritarian, that America says are, autocrats or part of the evil axis. Part of what America says is why Russia is so scary and China is so scary is because this is how their legal systems work. They're doing some of that stuff here. So now they're going to charge Mangione with domestic terrorism. All right, well, what happens then if we start having protesters outside BlackRock? If somebody, I don't know, yells at a BlackRock CEO walking out, or even throws something at executives, you're going to charge them with domestic terrorism? If people protest, we saw the protests at Standing Rock. We saw the protests to get rid of Line 3 pipeline, Keystone XL. Things were thrown. There was fires started. You're going to start charging them as domestic terrorists because they are blocking what police and politicians call critical infrastructure, or they're
Unions protesting could be next. That could be on the block to be charged with terrorism if you're, if they can label anything you say as something particularly uncouth or your signs, they could be charging workers with domestic terrorism charges for their free speech.
Also, it seems to be a bit of a redefining, because Alvin Bragg, the DA, was talking about, trying to terrorize or instill fear in citizens. Well, it sure seems to be that they're prioritizing the fear of a certain class of citizens over another class, because in his explanation of terrorism, and he also talks about it, explaining why the first-degree murder charges. You know what? Let's play that, Colin, the part where he talks about why he's being charged with first-degree murder. Let's play that.
Well, I want to echo the commissioner's words and concerns, which I think were put forth beautifully. And we see a lot in these jobs. I meet with the families of homicide victims, and I just can't wrap my head around the notion that someone is celebrating this. To your specific question, we're at the beginning of a litigation now with our charge. We have a phenomenal trial team in place, led by ADA Joel Seidman, who has been in this office for more than 40 years and handled some very challenging matters.
That wasn't the specific one I wanted, but again, this goes to Donald Trump yesterday saying, I don't get it. I don't get why people are praising Mangione. Same thing with the district attorney. I can't wrap my head around it. Because all these people, obviously they're not going to cheer for Mangione. The nature of their jobs would be against it. These people don't have to worry about healthcare. They don't have to worry about paying for surgeries or medical bills or this and that. They have great insurance. They have great pensions, or they're rich like Trump. So they
don't have the same kind of fears we have. The fears that are among the ruling class, among the oligarchs, are fears that that there will be an uprising.
Right.
They fear the poor. They fear the people that they're exploiting.
Absolutely. And remember to smash that like button. We got 1,300 people watching, 800 likes. So we need another about 400, 500 people to press that like button. Please subscribe if you're new here and leave super chats if you can. We will read them at the end. Also want to give a shout out because as part of our new subscribers, we just passed 300,000 subscribers over the weekend. Now we're at 302,000, so we're still moving in the right direction. We're getting new paid members, which is very crucial. Mangione might actually be extradited to New York as early as Thursday. And if he is, we're going to be there on the ground. We want to cover this on the ground. We assume there will be protesters there. So we're going to cover this every step of the way, and we need your help to do that. So if you can, support us, statuscoup.com/join. Become a member for as low as $5 a month. As far as I know, we're one of the only independent outlets in America consistently on the ground. We're not just sitting in a studio bloviating out of our assholes. We're on the ground covering what's important. We've been covering the fight for Medicare for all, the fight against for-profit predatory healthcare systems for years. So please support us, statuscoup.com, and shout out new Status Coup members, Kim, Dwayne, Sabina, hope I pronounced that right, Stephanie, and Sherry. All right, so here's the clip I wanted to play you because we heard from Bragg. It didn't make sense, but his explanation for the terrorism charges. I think this is even worse. Listen to his explanation for the first-degree murder charge.
The first-degree murder statute has a number of subsections. They're sort of clearly delineated, and they are reserved for, the most abhorrent conduct: killing a police officer, serial killing, and the terrorism is one subsection of that. And so, I would say, fortunately, that's not happening a lot. Taking a step back, I can't think of another office that is more equipped to handle a terrorism charge. We have a great terrorism unit. We were at the forefront of getting the statute passed. Within the last 2 years, we've tried 2 very significant terrorism cases, one involving an English-speaking operative based in Jamaica, and another involving someone who was here and funding overseas.
Am I in the Twilight Zone? Did he just equate, the most serious cases, killing a police officer, a serial killer? And there's been a lot of Son of Sam in New York City. He's comparing the CEO whose salary was $10 million, who was overseeing the deployment of artificial intelligence to deny more people care. He's comparing that guy with the cherished class of victims like killing a cop or victims of a serial killer. It sure seems like they're putting corporate CEOs on a much bigger pedestal because Eric Garner strangled to death on a curb in New York City. What was he doing? Selling stray cigarettes? His officer wasn't even charged, let alone domestic terrorism. So they're clearly telling you that they consider the capitalist class, the CEO of UnitedHealthcare, on par with killing a cop. Killing one of the elites is on par with killing a cop. Something as serious as a serial killer who, in many cases, we know the worst serial killers. They raped young children. They killed young kids. We know there were serial killers who went after specifically young women. He's comparing or equating. He's basically saying killing a rich person is the same as killing a cop. Do I have that wrong?
No. And one thing that's shocking to me is that there are a lot of murders every year. The murder rate's gone down overall nationally, so that's good. But there are murders every year that are motivated by a million different things. And to utilize this motivation in this way to label it domestic terrorism feels odd, because if someone shoots their boss, let's say, because they were fired from work, that would be horrible, any kind of murder is. But if someone were to do that, would that be considered terrorism? Typically not. That's something that happens. That's something that does happen. I've never seen them label that terrorism. There's 1,000 instances we could consider like this. at the end of the day, and what was the name of the lady that was on before?
Jessica Tisch, who, by the way, Zaina, I got a little factoid from my cameraman who's off camera right now. He's too shy to come on camera. But do you know that Jessica Tisch, the police commissioner who was scolding all of the people that are gleeful over the murder of Brian Thompson, do you know what her job was before she was elevated to the New York City police commissioner?
Oh, what was it?
She was the head of this New York City sanitation department. Now, no offense to my sanitation friends. I know a lot of people in sanitation. Great job. How do you go from the head of the sanitation department to the head of the NYPD? Other than the fact that your dad is an oligarch billionaire, Jonathan Tisch, who has bought off all the politicians, including New York City Eric Adams. Make that make sense to me. And this woman wants to scold the masses over, praising Luigi Mangione. You were literally running the garbage department 5 minutes before you were appointed to the head of the NYPD. Again, I don't have a problem with a woman being NYPD commissioner, but what are your qualifications to run the NYPD other than your last name, Tisch? I digress. I will point out, Zaina, it's definitely
they're in a club and we're not in it, Jordan.
Yes, as George Carlin once said, it's a big club and you're not in it. I will point out we've already seen examples of this slippery slope in the form of censorship. So censorship, there was in about 2018, 2019, definitely 2020 after January 6th, which Status Coup, if you're new here, if you're new, that footage of the cop's head rammed into the door, that was my cameraman who got that historic footage. And he nearly broke his ribs as the Trump posse was on top of him, but he still got that shot of the cop's head rammed into the door. And YouTube literally took down the footage from our live stream on January 6th. They took down, we had 30,000 people watching live. If they would have never taken that down from our channel at this point, what would you say? 30, 40 million? It probably would have been at views. We would have had 30, 40 million views. I tell you this, not for pity for us, even though it is fucked up that they took it down, but censorship, they took it down from our channel citing we were advancing false claims of election fraud. No, we were a news outlet covering the mob, covering the attempted coup. Sorry, MAGA, it was an attempted coup. It was. But the point is, and we licensed it to CNN and other outlets who then uploaded it on their channel using our footage. They were allowed to keep it up. I tell you this because with censorship, there might be people that you think are dangerous and you think shouldn't have a platform. But when you give Google or Twitter or Mark Zuckerberg or name your Silicon Valley oligarch or cable or corporate media, if you give them license to start censoring people, then it immediately gets reversed onto the people that actually do the work, like independent journalists, like freelance journalists that cover protests, and they could make up any reason they want to censor you. This is happening in America, and it happens around the world. Same
Just
principle here.
3 days ago, Jordan, 2 NYU professors were arrested at pro-Palestine protests because those are still happening at NYU in New York. Two were arrested, and there were 3 that were banned from the NYU campus for exercising their First Amendment rights and protesting. Nonviolent, just simply standing with students. They were at a permitted protest, arrested and banned. The 2 that were arrested and the 3 total, were all Jewish. And that was just a couple days ago. So there is a chilling effect against protest, against people protesting. It's appalling to ban 3 professors who are Jewish from the campus, and let alone for the university to implement the police to have them arrested at a permitted protest.
Right. But the reason I brought up the censorship example is for every person you might want them to censor, or you might, like, for example, I think Alex Jones is pretty damn dangerous. I think he in many cases, Alex Jones has actually inspired people to go get their guns. There are clips with him saying there's going to be a civil war, get your guns, right? But if you take Alex Jones off, well, they could then just reinvent the definition and take off, me for kind of sounding like I'm supporting Luigi Mangione, kind of sounding like I'm, quote, inciting a riot. Hell, I was at Standing Rock. They were arresting journalists, claiming the journalists were helping to, quote, incite a riot by live streaming it. By the way, they did the same thing in the 1960s during the Vietnam War protests. Mm-hmm. If you read Hunter Thompson's writing, the great Hunter S. Thompson, he covered the 1968 DNC convention, that wild scene in Chicago as the police were cracking down on Vietnam protesters outside the Democratic National Convention. And they were arresting people with inciting a riot back then. So not a lot has changed. And these were peaceful protesters. Mayor Daley, for you older folks watching, you know the story. Mayor Daley basically told the Chicago PD, shoot first, ask questions later. So I bring this up because charging Mangione, even if you don't condone the actual act of going and killing the CEO, even if you don't condone that, by charging him with domestic terrorism, they could then, it's going to be a domino effect from there. If you protest a pipeline, if you protest BlackRock, hell, there's going to be Amazon workers on strike before Christmas. We're going to go cover it this weekend. Again, as far as I know, we're the only independent. We don't take any money from UnitedHealthcare, Aetna, Cigna, Goldman Sachs, Pfizer, the fossil fuckers, none of that. We're going to go cover the Amazon workers that are going to be on strike in Staten Island this weekend. We'll be on the ground covering that. Hey, if there's violence, right? If police start getting rough with workers, and let's say a policeman is injured or a protester throws something at cops, you're going to start charging domestic terrorism? By the way, domestic terrorism, you charge domestic terrorism and you are successful, I mean, you're looking at 30 years in prison, maybe longer. So it is serious business charging domestic terrorism. You don't want to casually charge that. But I think this is very dangerous. And again, and we don't have the clip. Hopefully we'll get it for tomorrow. CNN, after this press conference, CNN had guests on. There was a law enforcement official who actually said, I think the terrorism charge is an overreach. So at least somebody on CNN, maybe they were, going against, maybe they'll get a slap on the wrist for it. They said the terrorism charge is an overreach. I don't really know how you could charge this as a terrorist because he shot him in the back, but he wasn't trying to hurt more than one person. Again, his notes, I'm reading to you from his notes that they found. He said, I was thinking about a bomb, but then I thought differently and chose to shoot him because it's, quote, it's targeted, precise, and doesn't risk innocence. What kind of terrorist says I don't want to risk innocence? Now, again, Zeynab, some people might say, well, Thompson was innocent. I don't think he was innocent, but some people think that. But I don't know many terrorists that don't want to inflict as many deaths as possible.
It's also interesting because Jessica Tisch was using examples such as the individuals that had the deck of cards, T-shirts. She was showing posters in talking about the indictment of Luigi Mangione. You can't bring that into court. That's not something that they can utilize for this indictment is the public response. It'll be interesting to see if they try that, but that would be unprecedented. How are they going to charge him with someone else's response to his actions?
Right.
And on top of that, is she suggesting that those individuals who made the cards, who are making these social media posts, are terrorists?
Accomplices.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. And I think the Manhattan District Attorney gave it away. I think he gave away the mindset. And I also think they are getting a lot of pressure. These are elected officials. The district attorney is an elected official. The attorney general of states is elected. Obviously, the mayor, the governor. And who's funding them? UnitedHealthcare, Pfizer, Wall Street. On this day, Governor Kathy Hochul, Zeynab, you and I went through it yesterday. We talked about it. she's holding a big conference call with like 175 corporate executives and corporate CEOs. They won't tell you which ones. The corporations don't want to tell you which corporations are participating. She's holding a Zoom call with almost 200 corporate CEOs and executives to calm their nerves, and I quote from Politico.
You know who she's not holding a Zoom call with? All the people impacted that have been talking about how screwed over they are by the health insurance company. She's not doing a town hall right now in the state of New York to talk about federally subsidized healthcare as a human right. Instead, she's taking your time that you elected her for, New Yorkers, your tax dollars, and having a press conference with a bunch of scared CEOs.
You know, it's interesting. I want to read to you because after our live stream yesterday, I got a text from an activist in Buffalo where I've reported on the ground before, and told me, you know, Kathy Hochul, the New York governor, who's politically prostituting herself today. I said politically prostituting herself to 175 corporate CEOs to calm their nerves. And they're even discussing possibly having a special hotline for worried corporate CEOs, where corporate CEOs and corporate executives and corporate workers could phone into the hotline their worries if somebody looks at them wrong.
And then they can request state subsidized policing to come and be basically their security.
Right.
Our tax dollars will pay for that for a multi-billion-dollar company.
Right. And by the way, we have 1,500 people watching, so smash the like button so we can get more people watching. I want to read this to you because after my live stream, an activist from Buffalo messaged me. You remember that shooting at the Top supermarket, which happened, I believe, in 2023, I think it was. This was a racist, a white supremacist drove several hours to basically shoot up black people in Buffalo in a supermarket. Was it 2023? Yeah, 2022. I think 10 people died, if I'm correct. That was, to me, a terrorist attack. Well, apparently, Kathy Hochul, right after the corporate CEO, so after Brian Thompson is killed, she's on Zoom calls with corporate CEOs. She's having a special hotline possibly set up for worried corporate CEOs. The district attorney in New York going to charge Mangione as a terrorist. Do you know that 2 years after that massacre, where I think it was 10 people were killed at the Buffalo supermarket, I was told by a Buffalo activist in the know, they didn't even set up any type of preventative measures. The cops, there's no hey, what's our emergency protocol? Because after these situations, a lot of times they kind of look at, do we have an emergency protocol set up in the event of a mass shooting or something like this? They said there is not even a see something, say something protocol that was set up after a mass shooting in Buffalo, where, by the way, Governor Kathy Hochul is from Buffalo. So apparently, if minorities, I believe it was majority of people dead there were black in Buffalo, if they're massacred, we don't need to have an urgent hotline set up. We don't need to charge. We don't need to have Zoom calls with 175 black people, black citizens, but we do need to have an immediate Zoom call with 175 corporate CEOs. By the way, part of the reporting in that, the reason that they want to have this special hotline and have a Zoom meeting with these corporate CEOs, they're afraid that the companies are going to leave New York. So we need to elevate this class of citizens, this class of victims, because we don't want the tax base to shrink. I mean, it's just disgusting. Again, I want to be clear, folks, because I know this is a important moment. I am not telling anyone to go get your guns and shoot down CEOs. I do think that will come back on us. I don't believe in vigilante justice. However, I also don't agree with a tale of two cities. I don't agree with a Gilded Age, which we now live in the second Gilded Age. And I don't think Brian Thompson is somebody where the shooter should be charged as a domestic terrorist. I don't think Brian Thompson is more special or he's more of a victim than anybody else. But they're telling you they do. They're telling you they do think that. So is Donald Trump, by the way. So for you MAGA people watching, Donald Trump came out yesterday and said he thinks it's disgusting that people are glorifying Luigi Mangione. He said it's disgusting. He admonished Luigi Mangione, praised Brian Thompson. So you might think Trump is, friend of the worker. He's not. He tried to get rid of Obamacare. Obamacare is not my cup of tea, but it's certainly better than the, SOL, your shit out of luck healthcare system that we had before. I think it needs to be torn down completely and just created a universal system. But I think they are telling you from this response, they don't want you. They don't want folks. They want to bottle up this outrage and scare the living shit out of you by
They're telling
charging
us
domestic terrorism.
Shut up.
Yep.
Shut up, because if you aren't feeling the heartstrings for Brian Thompson and you somehow relate to the anger of Luigi Mangione, then you too could be considered a terrorist. That's what this is. And this is the same tactic that they've been pulling on us about everything. Like I mentioned yesterday, it's Darvo. It's gaslighting. It's an abusive tactic where they turn it around, and now people that are upset about their healthcare system, we're the bad guys. We're the abusers. Right. We're the aggressive ones.
It's a very slippery slope. Colin, I think there's more clips we have. Whatever the other clips are, let's play those.
I echo what the commissioner said, and the sentiment of your question, my heart goes out to. This is a significant piece of what we do here, is we center the trauma of survivors and victims and their families. A significant piece of what I do is sit across the table and look people in the eye, and when appropriate, if they want to, offer a hug. And we have dedicated advocates and counselors and great staff that focuses on that. So I agree completely with you. And I wish that that's where the public's focus was exclusively. That's where it should be. That's where it is here, in addition to obviously the facts and the law.
So again, he wishes that you, the public's focus was on the victim, Brian Thompson. And I'll be honest. I'm a human. I can't. He does have two sons. I feel bad for them. They're two young kids. They lost their father. I have a heart, but he wishes that, the rest of you were crying tears for Brian Thompson. How about you do something, Alvin Bragg, about the predatory practices of UnitedHealthcare? We just did an interview the other day. Colin, if you have the clip, I interviewed a whistleblower who used to work at UnitedHealthcare. CNN won't have her on. MSNBC won't have her on. The New York Times isn't going to talk to her. She told me when she worked at UnitedHealthcare, they had a quota system. They had a quota system for denying care, meaning you had to meet a certain amount of denials to be in good standing as an employee. How is that not a crime? So you basically have to, if you're an insurance employee, you have to deny a certain amount of claims, even ones that are perfectly valid. If you have that, let's play that.
I got this call. It started out with speaking with the administrator, and we were progressing.
I set that up completely wrong. So the clip we have is not that, but we're going to play this clip. This is a case where she was explaining that UnitedHealthcare refused to cover the full treatment for an intersex child, meaning a 14-year-old who was born with male parts and female parts. They would only cover the removal of a penis. They would not cover the rebuilding of a vagina. Let's play that.
I got this call. It started out with speaking with the administrator, and we were progressing nowhere really as far as getting it resolved. And this was one of the rare opportunities that I actually talked to the doctor. And so the situation with this child was born with both body parts. They had male and female body parts. And we had paid for the claim to have her penis removed, but we were denying the portion of the claim to have her vagina rebuilt, or to build a vagina for her. And the reason was it was an exclusion for sex change operation. That was an exclusion at the time. And when I talked to the doctor, he said, I don't care, I'm just going to go ahead and do it. But, the thing about why this story sticks with me is that, in my layman's opinion, I'm not a doctor, when you have male and female parts, this is not a sex change. This is a correction. There's a medical reason to do this for this person.
Mm-hmm. And also, I mean, UnitedHealthcare clearly knows the difference between a voluntary sex change and a hermaphrodite who was born this way. Right. And also, I mean, in a lot of cases, the doctor wouldn't have gone ahead with it because doctors, for various reasons, don't want to go against the insurance or want to get paid. So if this doctor didn't do that, that delay could have been costly to the child of, rebuilding the female parts.
Yeah. And actually, I guess the reason why this affects me so deeply is because, in a way, she's already been put at it costly. She was 14 years old. She's gone through puberty.
I mean, it's really unbelievable. Can you imagine, like, the rare case where you have Siamese, what do they call it? Siamese twins? Where they're attached? Conjoined twins. Is UnitedHealthcare going to pay to split them up, but then they're going to deny the several days they need to spend in the hospital for post-op? I mean, it's crazy. And apologies, I know in the interview I used the wrong term. I was not aware it was offensive. Now I know to call it intersex. So my apologies. I was not aware. So what's amazing to me about this, that's just one story. She was telling me about other stories where they were routinely denying MRIs to diagnose cancer because they were saying, well, you don't have a cancer diagnosis, so we can't approve this. How many people then didn't get the MRI because they couldn't afford it and missed the cancer or got their treatment delayed to treat the cancer? Is that not murder? When you're making conscious
cancer at younger and younger ages, so sitting it at, you can't have your prostate checked or you can't be checked for breast cancer until you're 45, 50, 55 is nonsense. If there were so many comments on these threads about people, a woman found, a lump in her breast and she was upset because she was only 36 and was denied cancer screening, something that we used to do at many clinics across the country that were closed down because of the ACA privatizing what we did, the little bit of public health care we did have. There used to be screenings, there used to be the stuff, not as much as we needed, but at least we had some. Now United has taken over this infrastructure, and some of these people, they have Medicaid, they have Medicare, but because it's privatized and United Health handles an innumerable number of Medicare and Medicaid patients, and it's insured through places like Humana and United, they can deny treatment even if they're on public health care. And some of these people are like, I'm on Medicaid, but I got denied a cancer screening when they found a lump on my breast. Come to find out, I was allowed a year later when it advanced into my lymph nodes. That was one story I saw. So if they had found the lump on her breast, it could have saved her life, literally, if they had just done that screening. And a mammogram to do is in actuality very inexpensive. If you look at the cost of it globally, it is not an expensive procedure.
But that's not considered murder. If you knowingly deny care, somebody needs to potentially save their life. Because let me tell you something. If you're a doctor and you get drunk or something like that, or you're inebriated before surgery, you could be prosecuted. So you're knowingly endangering somebody's life. You could be prosecuted for that. Yeah. But if you're an insurance company and you're knowingly denying care that someone needs, that's the equivalent of a firefighter showing up to the house and deciding, I think there's enough time to save the child, but I don't want to do it.
That's
I
a
mean,
great analogy. We're gonna save money on the water. We're not gonna do anything about this. We're not even gonna send the truck out because
Yeah.
it costs gas money. Forget it. We're gonna save. We're budgeting here.
And to set up this next clip, which might piss you off in the audience, I'm just warning you. I was just sent this from corrupt New York City Mayor Eric Adams. To set that up, I want to read to you a poll, which might not surprise folks in the audience. This is a new poll that was taken to get Americans' response to the murder of Brian Thompson. 41% of young voters say UnitedHealthcare CEO killing acceptable. A poll found. And let me show you the breakdown. Of this poll. As you get older, it's less acceptable. Total, 17% find it acceptable. If you're 18 to 29 years old, 41%. So that's Gen Z, some millennial, find it acceptable. If you're age 30 to 39, 23% find it acceptable. Age 40 to 49, 13%. 50 to 59, 8%, 60 to 69, 9%, 70 or more, 11% acceptable. Hey, Zeynab, you see a common pattern as you go up there? The class, the age that finds it most acceptable has been the most fucked by this government. Not to say that older Americans, because it's not easy for all older Americans. I have horror stories routinely sent to me from seniors on SSI or Social Security who are nearly homeless. So there's plenty of older people not doing well. But overall, I mean, Gen Z, so many of them can't even get out of mom and dad's basement. Good. Buying a house, fantasy. Same goes for millennials who grew up, in the post 9/11, the war on terror, the financial crash, which not only is, let's not forget, it's not only that they're treating Brian Thompson as some, elevated victim because he was a corporate CEO. There's also the crime of they don't charge CEOs with crimes in America.
No.
No banker was thrown in prison for tanking the
Or
global.
if they do, you can have a Joe Biden to pardon them for essentially murder.
Or the rare cases that they do, they put you into a bed and breakfast prison situation, Jeffrey Epstein, where he was allowed to come out and, go to his office and get massages. Anyway, but the bottom line is, if older people want to, shout and holler, you young kids, where are your morals? Yeah, their morals kind of maybe not as prevalent to the capitalist class that has screwed them, who has strangled them with student loan debt, who they don't have job prospects. It's a fantasy to buy a house. I could understand why they're not exactly that. Finding it acceptable doesn't mean they themselves are going to go kill someone, but they say, to me, I read that as they're not exactly going to shed tears for the CEO of a predatory healthcare company getting gunned down. Meaning,
well, when there is no justice, I think that is where a lot of people's emotional, at least from an evaluation of the comments that I've seen, is the lack of justice. There is no justice against people, like you had said, like Brian Thompson. There is no outlet. There is no real outlet for us to fight back. Even the protests that we do, even all the organizing falls on deaf ears. When I worked, when I was one of the leading spokespeople for Medicare for All in 2016 and 2017, we got more than 218 members of Congress to sign on to support Medicare for All and co-sign co-sign Medicare for All. There's even a couple Republicans on there, oddly. Yet it didn't go anywhere. So when, as far as there was a bill introduced, all these co-sponsors, signed on. There were more than 350 people running for office in 2018 that supported Medicare for All. And it didn't go anywhere. And I think that people are frustrated because they feel that, what is it? Canada has had their system since 1945. 1945. they have had universal health care. England has had it nearly as long. We are so far behind. We're almost 100 years behind, and people are dying from it. And it's the lack of justice. In some ways, they feel like, well, we're not going to get justice from the court system. We're not going to get justice from the system changing. And so that's part of where the Schadenfreude comes from, I think.
Right. I wanted to give you that poll because now we're going to have corrupt New York City Mayor Eric Adams lecture.
Oh boy. Why you do this to us, Jordan?
Let's listen to corrupt New York City Mayor Eric Adams lecture the young people about your, disappearing values.
Think about the shooter. Ivy League, grew up in an affluent household. His manifesto clearly is showing some signs of hating. Our children are being radicalized. I said this over and over again. Everybody's like, what are you talking about, Eric? And, our children are being radicalized to hate the America, to hate the country that put them where they are. This person had all that one wants to have, but he hated everything to the point of shooting someone. And we better deal with the radicalization of our young people. And, people could, they could complain that I'm saying it, but I'm seeing it. I'm seeing our bench is hating the team. And we better start acknowledging and focusing on that. And so having dance parties, celebrating the death of someone, I don't support that.
Kat, did you notice we're on the bench?
Zeynab?
Our bench is hating the team. So the people that don't get to play are hating the team. He said it. They say it, they tell on themselves. They're just so in their heads that they don't even know that they're saying the thing out loud.
Zeynab, it's time for the glasses to come off. You know what's fucking radical? You want to know what's radical, Eric Adams? And I wish Bernie Sanders would have said this in 2016. And I wish Bernie Sanders would have said this in 2020. I don't want to hear about it's radical to provide health care. It's radical to deny people life. It's radical to deny people the ability to save their lives or live longer lives or live better lives so that capitalist fucks can make more money. That's radical. And other countries with a sane health care system look at us as the radicals. Yeah. I played a video earlier showing some of my coverage in UK. My wife and I, my girlfriend at the time, my wife now, we were in London on our first vacation together. And of course, I went to go cover a protest on vacation. And I interviewed some of the Brits because the United States was under Trump at the time. We were trying to dabble into the National Healthcare Service, the NHS, which is beloved there, and trying to basically privatize it. And they thought we were the radical ones. They thought it was it's like trying to understand a foreign language. They couldn't understand. I don't understand. Copays? What is that?
There was a massive response several years ago during the Super Bowl. Or no. It was during the Cup. It was during a soccer football tournament and international. And people for the first time internationally were seeing the United States do advertisements for medications. And the response globally was like, what the hell is this? They had never seen an ad for a medication before in their lives because they just go to the doctor and get their medication. And there were people from all across the globe saying, can you believe they're advertising medications? It's not even legal in a lot of these countries to advertise medication. It's part of their system and everyone is guaranteed health care. So it totally like blew the roof off, and there were thousands of comments or hundreds of thousands of comments. It went viral.
But this is what they did. I mean, this is why, the generations change, but the capitalist system does not. They called Martin Luther King radical, and the young people supporting Martin Luther King, they called them radical. They call the young people out there trying to stop the Vietnam War radical. I always mispronounce it. COINTELPRO, Do I need to countel pro? Do I need to say more? This is all a psyops from the capitalist class. Hell, the CIA, I would love it if I came up with this. Somebody did. They call it capitalism's invisible army. So there, and by the way, Eric Adams, I hate to tell you, it ain't just the young people who are kind of praising Luigi Mangione. There's a whole lot of middle-aged and older people. So it's not just the young people have lost their values. No. Well, how about you go talk to the bankers who tanked the global economy? How about calling them radicals? How about you go talk to BlackRock? Call them radicals. By the way, East Palestine, Ohio, which we've been covering, which a multi-billion-dollar railroad company, Norfolk Southern, which unnecessarily chemically nuked East Palestine and Western Pennsylvania. How about you call them radical? People are sick there. And by the way, Zeynab, I've been pitching a story to mainstream media because I won't say the whole thing. I got the goods. I have on audio a top EPA official acknowledging that they found the very toxic chemicals early on that they told the public they weren't finding. No wonder people are sick. I pitched it to The Guardian. They passed. I pitched it to The Washington Post. They passed. I pitched it to a bunch of mainstream outlets. Couldn't care less. How about you go call JP Morgan and Wells Fargo radical, Eric Adams? For the people watching, are you aware that JP Morgan and Wells Fargo were involved in the financial scheme that ended up poisoning the people of Flint, Michigan, who 10 years later still don't have clean water? If you want the details, go buy my book, We the Poisoned. Subtle plug. You don't call JP Morgan and Wells Fargo radical for their privatization scheme that poisoned a community. Zeynab, I could go on forever. Sorry to get on my high horse.
Status quo, though. That's not the radical. The radical is fighting against the status quo. The system isn't broken. It's designed this way. And that's why you even have a Democrat like Eric Adams up here speaking like we might as well be listening to Lindsey Graham.
You know what else is radical, Zeynab?
In his rhetoric.
You know what else is radical? That in America, you could be an elected politician and trade stocks at the same time. That's fucking radical. You could literally get intel on, industries and then go trade stocks before anybody else has the information. That's why Nancy Pelosi is a goddamn, she might not be a billionaire yet, but she's on her way.
$240 million. I just looked it up. That's her net worth. $240 million.
He's sitting there talking about the radicalized youth. We need to start changing the definition of what is violence, of what is murder, and what is radical. And I wish he would have stopped calling Joe his friend. I wish he would have taken off the gloves against Hillary. And I wish he would have said what I just said, that it's not radical to provide health care and education. It's radical not to. It's radical for a country to literally provide corporations with the welfare before their people. And by the way, this is not a lefty perspective because a lot of people on the right agree. A lot of people got hoodwinked by Trump because Trump in the beginning, remember Trump in 2016 when he was running, he did an interview where he said, not a very Republican thing for me to say, I think the government needs to provide health care. He said that. Of course, he was full of shit, but he said it. He said, I covered it on the road when I covered Trump rallies. He talked about going after the banks. He didn't mean any of it. I just think, you know what? The media, but more specifically the politicians, they're usually subtle. They try to be subtle about their favoritism for the corporations, the CEOs. They try to throw you lip service. They try to talk kind of like, hey, we're a friend of the workers. This press conference today, they threw that out the window. They told you in plain language, Brian Thompson was in an elevated protective class of citizens. We're going to mangle the law and treat the law differently to go after Luigi Mangione as a terrorist, even though in writing he said, I don't want to kill anyone other than this one person. I want to protect innocence. I don't know many terrorists that in writing said, I don't want to hurt anyone more than this one person. I don't know, Zeynab. I know I'm going off and kind of on tangents, but I think it's really, It's really alarming that we just had this 2-year campaign, which is also sad that and frustrating that our campaigns go on that long, where we had this theater about democracy being on the line. I think what we're seeing here is the people railing about democracy are actually the ones who have made it an oligarchy.
Yeah. Yeah. Radical really just means change. So he's saying, all these people, they want change. Yes. Yes, Eric Adams. You know who else they called radical? I'm Appalachian. They called the Battle of Blair Mountain. The people fighting against the coal barons who were killing them in the mines, who were making them purchase all of their goods at the company store with company money instead of actually paying them dollars, who were literally murdering people if they didn't go to work, that were murdering people trying to build a union. They called those people, when they took up their arms and they marched up Blair Mountain to stand up against the coal barons, they were called radical by our politicians. They were called radical by the coal companies, and everyone was feigning morality in the media and the press. But it's what jump-started the labor movement. It's one of the things that got us the bare minimum of labor protections that we used to have. It's what got these people paid in actual cash instead of having to pay at the company store in what was essentially indentured servitude. But back then, during the last Gilded Age, they were called radical. Martin Luther King was called radical. Fred Hampton was called radical. If you look through our history, anyone fighting for change, that's how they try to paint us. And Eric Adams is feeding right into that. He's telling us to sit our asses down on the bench and watch as others play the game and deal with it.
And listen, I'm not an expert. I'm certainly no lawyer. I think that charging him with terrorism might backfire on them. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe they could get the other charges. I don't know 12 jurors who are going to agree that this was an act of terrorism. And I also don't know, I don't know if you could find 12 people that all 12 in their hearts would be against what he did. The fight over
they
juries.
may be able to stack a jury, but I think that the public outcry from this is going to be massive. I don't think that we're at a point anymore where their fear tactics are working like it used to.
I agree.
I think that we're at the same point that the miners were when they said to hell with this and they marched up that mountain. We're at the same point right now as a country as a whole, I think.
If you'll allow me, Zeynab, I want to play some of this because I think it is reflective as we're talking about other countries just totally dumbfounded with our system of healthcare. I was in London in 2019. I went to go cover a protest. I interviewed folks. Here's one interview I did. I won't play the whole thing, but I'll play some of it with somebody who worked at the NHS, so worked for the UK healthcare system. Let's take a listen. Hey, it's Jordan. I'm here at Trafalgar Square. I'm with Tom from the National Health Service, which has really come into play now as Trump is here for the NATO summit.
Absolutely.
And it seems like what I call the United Corporations of America is trying to get their hands on your great healthcare system. Can you kind of talk about what you guys are trying to do here? If you could show the knife on NHS and an image of President Trump.
Hi there. Yeah, so the NHS is something that very clearly big corporations around the world, specifically American corporations, absolutely want a piece of. We know now that Tory government officials, trade envoys, have been meeting in secret with their opposite numbers from America, and to begin with, all those documents were heavily redacted, i.e. kept secret. because they do show that, of course, especially drug pricing and in lots of other ways, the NHS is likely to be opened up with a Trump trade deal in this country. Now, the thing is, the background to all of this that makes this especially kind of emotive to people who use the NHS, people who work in the NHS, and just to the general public, is that we've now had 10 years or more absolutely devastating cuts by this right-wing conservative Tory government. We've seen staffing levels fall to really dangerous levels. And up to 2009, the NHS service was one of the best, I think, top 5 health services in the world, and actually cost per head about half as much as it costs per head the American taxpayer.
Wait, are you saying that government health care, which citizens pay a little bit more in taxes, you actually save money? Because in America, they fearmonger about that, saying you're going to raise your taxes, you're going to be paying for this socialized medicine. There's a lot of fearmonger in America, which here it doesn't seem to be true.
Well, I mean, part of the reason why it's not true and why a trade deal with the Trump administration is so frightening is precisely because whilst it's a publicly administered, publicly owned service, there are all kinds of rules and regulations about drug pricing being the obvious one, about workers' rights and so on. And so you end up having, you know, when it's properly funded, you end up having a fit and healthy, committed workforce that don't, without huge turnover, you have drug prices that are entirely affordable and so on and so on. When the whole system is opened out to private interest, to the profit motive, then you start to see these prices absolutely soaring. Part of the money that the American taxpayer is paying is going directly to, because of drug pricing in the American health system, which is like, in some cases, and this isn't an exaggeration, 1,000% the price of what we pay for some of our drugs in this country. That's why it's so inefficient, if you like, cost-wise.
And just so the audience understands, Trump and the pharmaceutical companies in America are trying to gain access to the marketplace here, so that essentially drugs that currently have price controls through the NHS and the NHS's ability to negotiate drug prices, what Trump and the pharmaceutical companies here are trying to do is basically pull back those price controls.
Yeah, I mean, it's somewhere in one of the documents there's a commitment from one of the US trade envoys saying, you know, total liberalization of drug prices and so on. I mean, it's the idea that essentially what is a...
So not only, and that was Trump 1.0, Trump's coming into office now, and there's already been efforts, Trump to privatize Medicare here, Biden continues those policies. Eric Adams, the mayor we just showed you, he's been trying to kick seniors in New York who paid into Medicare all their lives, switch them from Medicare, the government administered program, to Medicare Advantage, which is privatized. But not only are they trying to deprive you of health care, America has been trying to get their hands on Great Britain's health care and further privatize that. So they don't want to only kill you, they want to kill you across the pond too. You can't make this up. And by the way, support Status Coup. I was on the ground on my vacation, for God's sakes, okay? And my wife,
that was a great interview.
My wife, God bless her, was my cameraman for those interviews. So statuscoup.com/join. We're on the ground here. We're on the ground in London, everywhere. Become a member for as low as $5 a month. But I thought it was important to show you that because what does he say? Drugs are 1,000 times more in America than in Great Britain.
And our taxes pay for the research and development of these pharmaceuticals. And yet when these pharmaceuticals are, you know, past the bar through the FDA, then we're charged an arm and a leg for them after our taxes oftentimes pay for the research and development of these medications. It's
crazy. So as we wind this down, I want to say a couple things. Number one, it's possible that Luigi Mangione, there's conflicting reports, but I do believe he will probably be extradited to New York at some point this week. It could be as early as Thursday. He's got a court hearing in Pennsylvania on Thursday. Some reports say he's going to waive extradition, meaning agree to be moved to New York. If he's moved to New York, he would have a hearing pretty much right away. So if he does have a hearing in New York as soon as this week, we will plan on being there on the ground. And I believe you are going to see a lot of people out there in support of him. And Eric Adams and, the New York City Police Commissioner could scold that if they want. And the media will certainly scold it. Those people out there condoning, cold blood murder. But at the end of the day, maybe instead of scolding people and lecturing people, maybe you should start thinking about where is this outrage coming from? Why do people hate us so much? Us meaning UnitedHealthcare and Wall Street and corporate media, which has a lower approval rating than lice. Maybe you should start evaluating, why do they hate us so much? Because you could get more armed security to protect the CEOs, which they're doing. They're spending a whole lot more money on CEOs. You could add extra gates around your mansions if you want, but you can't really stop the hate. You can't stop other people who might look at this and say, I want to take action on my own. I'm not condoning violence, but again, it's kind of inevitable. At a certain point, people have had enough. Even Elizabeth Warren said that. At a certain point, the people have had enough of the austerity, of the corruption, of the exploitation of workers, and then you turning around and scolding them to organize better. Well, people have organized for many years, and it's really gotten them very little. Zeynab,
we're losing people, we're suffering, people are dying under this system. And it's designed that way. We're a commodity, and that's it. Yep. But a CEO is some grand king that their case gets expedited. Now, how long does it usually even take? People can sit in jail for months before a trial is even set, before charges are even implemented, before any of this happens. Everything is also being expedited in this case, if you haven't noticed.
Oh, absolutely.
So when it comes to families getting quote unquote actual justice in cases of violent crime, that can take years.
I've talked to mothers of Black kids who were killed by police that did not get, the national spotlight of Trayvon Martin or George Floyd or, Michael Brown, who the public didn't know. I mean, they called police departments for years to get action. Nothing. No charges, no nothing. Here.
What about the thousands of indigenous women that go missing? Mm-hmm. Native American women that go missing every year.
Yep. It's a great point. So, all right, let me read some super chats. And also remember, we'll put the link in the description. You got to subscribe to Zaina's outlet, Bullhorn Bulletin. The Bullhorn Bulletin. She's got some great investigative pieces in the works. She is independent, so definitely subscribe. Right in. The link is in the description. She does great work. Tony D, $4.99 super chat. Jordan, thank you for platforming Zeynab, an incredible autistic comrade. There you go. Luigi is not a terrorist. BB is the real terrorist. BB, terrorist. Jamie Dimon, terrorist. Lloyd Blankfein, terrorist. Andrew Whitty, CEO of United Health Group, the parent company, I believe, terrorist. Mm-hmm. I could go further, but I don't want to get kicked off YouTube. So, Cosmos, $10 super chat. Thank you. Alex, $4.99. Isn't the Second Amendment about protecting Americans from elite abuse, theft, and or unaliving? I love that word, unaliving. Or is it only for use against powerless teachers? I am going to steal that from you, Alex. That is a great, profound statement, and I might steal it from you. I will try to give you credit, though. It is typically only used for powerless teachers and powerless young kids getting mowed down in schools. Ava Moon, what a name, $10. Thank you for all you do. Keep up the great investigative reporting. It's become a rare art. Absolutely. And reminder, folks, taking off the glasses again, $5 a month. I need you. We need to grow Status Coup. We, as far as I know, are the only independent outlet routinely on the ground across America. I've been to Flint 21 times. That's why I was able to break and write the book, We the Poisoned, Exposing the Flint Water Cover-Up. We've been to East Palestine, Ohio 8 times. We covered the Amazon workers before they won their union. We were on the ground there for a year, interviewing workers as they organized. We were on the ground interviewing the Starbucks workers before they won. We were on the ground in 2021 interviewing the John Deere workers in Iowa and Illinois.
Teacher strikes.
When they were on strike. We've covered teacher strikes. We've covered nurses strikes. We did multiple reporting trips during COVID, interviewing homeless people, poor people, people facing eviction. We did an inflation reporting trip a year ago. Again, interviewing people that you will never see on CNN. And it's costly. It costs money to go out there with myself, a cameraman, flights, hotels, rent a car, food, equipment, and a lot of other costs. That's why a lot of outlets don't do it, besides the fact that they're lazy. But it does cost a lot of money. So all I ask of you is 16 cents a day. You could support us for as low as $5 a month. The more money we get, the better I sleep, so we can prevent those bags. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Robert Copeland, $5. Jordan, I guess YouTube does selective censorship. It sure does. Mary, $5. Great journalism work by Jordan and team, and Zeynab. Thank you. Galactic Moth gifted 5 memberships. Holy cow. Thank you, Galactic. Awesome. Teresa, $20. Love Zeynab back on the show. She is wonderful. Go subscribe to the Bullhorn Bulletin. Wanker Tanker, love it. $2. Let us revoke corporate charters. Ava Moon, $5. Please support one of the last independent investigative reporters. And let me tell you a little bit about that. I don't want to burn any bridges, but let's burn some bridges. Shame on The Guardian and shame on the Washington Post. I've sent out a story the last 2 days. I pitched several outlets, including The Guardian and the Washington Post, because I have audio exposing that the EPA lied to the public about the chemical contamination in East Palestine. Remember those trains that were detonated with toxic chemicals? It's been called a mini Chernobyl by some toxicologists over Ohio, over Pennsylvania. I have audio proving that the EPA detected certain contamination on the ground there in the beginning, right after the derailment, right after the chemical burn.
Which is what locals had been suspecting was happening when Status Coup went down there and interviewed all of them, which is what environmental actors that were on the ground and researchers were finding and blowing the whistle to the EPA. This is a huge, huge story.
And I have audio with an EPA official basically saying, yeah, we did find it in the beginning. In the beginning, when they were telling the public they're not finding these chemicals. No wonder we are talking to people with cancer now. No wonder we're talking to parents who have 6, 7, and 8-year-old daughters who are having very early menstrual cycles. Girls, 6, 7, and 8, getting their menstrual cycles. No wonder we are talking to teenagers having seizures. I pitched this to the Washington Post. Pass. I pitched this to the Guardian. Pass. I pitched it to the Cleveland Plain Dealer in Cleveland. The Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, who did respond to me today, so I won't criticize them yet. I've pitched this to the New York Times, the Washington Post. I could do a whole documentary or book just on the corrupt media. What do you mean you pass? How are you passing on a major story exposing that the government agency that's supposed to regulate the environment literally lied to the public about environmental chemical contamination, which is kind of a life or death thing. It's a life or death public health emergency if people are exposed to chemicals like vinyl chloride, which are linked to leukemia, breast cancer, lung cancer, liver cancer, reproductive issues. I could go on and on. So we're talking about health.
It's important that in investigative independent journalism, that's why it's important, that you guys are liking it, signing on, all that stuff. I know every podcaster's like, subscribe, all of that. But one of the reasons is because in order to get the story out, Jordan is pitching these places to get the story out so that it gets the most amount of eyeballs possible. because we've been covering this for a year and a half at Status Coup. So to get the most eyes possible, so helping this channel grow will help to get out to the most eyes possible, so that you don't have to pitch to the New York Times and the Washington Post and all these other places, that the story can get out there through networks like these, which are a rarity these days.
Amen. I would much rather just publish this stuff on my own. Unfortunately, we don't yet have as big of a platform or audience as those outlets. So I have to reach out to some bigger outlets to reach more eyeballs. But 100%, I would much rather do it on my own. NEC2, $4.99. We need to start calling these healthcare companies what they really are: corrupt. It's not broken, and there is no saving it. I said that last week. This is not a broken system, as some people call it. It's a corrupt system. NSBD 90, $10. Fighting the oligarchs. Free Luigi. Thanks for the super chat. Yevevra, super sicker, $2. Video game controller gives a thumbs up and say GG. Okay. Gaspos Fleiss, 249 euros. Democracy needs a healthy journalism as fourth power. Woohoo. And New Blue, $5. This more big pharma, Henry Gadsden, CEO of Merck, said his dream was for people to buy farm like they do Wrigley's chewing gum. He would be so proud. Well, if the cost of healthcare would be as cheap as Wrigley chewing gum, I wouldn't be complaining, because people can afford Wrigley chewing gum. They can't afford MRIs and cancer treatment without it being covered. Shells, super chat, $9.99. Thank you so much. Jen became a YouTube member. Thank you, Jen. Valerie, $10 super chat. Thank you. Thank you. CB, $50 super chat. Thank you. Thank you, CB. 1,000 watching the stream, over 1,000 likes on the stream. You've come a long way. Keep going, Jordan. Keep going strong. If you want to change the world and you don't know how to do it, give $5 a month and Jordan will do it for you. That's another one I'm stealing. I'm actually literally copying that right now. If you want to change the world, Colin, can you copy that? My browser won't allow me to copy that. If you want to, I'm not going to be as egotistic to say Jordan will do it. But if you want to change the world and you don't know how to do it, give $5 a month and Status Coup will do it for you. Okay, now I can copy it. All right, CB, I hope you don't mind, but I'm stealing that and probably going to use that in our marketing because that's pretty damn good. All right, who else? Ice Crunch. Oh, no, Ice Crusher became a member. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And to all you fine folks who signed up on YouTube, thank you, thank you, thank you. YouTube's not going to like this, but I'm going to say it anyway. If you don't mind, go ahead and cancel those YouTube memberships and sign up on our website. Because if you signed up on YouTube, as much as I appreciate it, we don't get your email. And we want your email, not to spam you, not to beg you for money, but we want your email so we could email you when we're going live on the ground, when we break news. So if it's not too much of a hassle, cancel on YouTube and sign up on our website, statuscoup.com/join. statuscoup.com/join. If you'd rather not and you want to stay on YouTube, that's fine too, but we can't get your emails if you signed up on YouTube. We get your emails if you signed up on our website. So you can become a member on our website. Same thing, for as low as $5 a month. And by the way, we still are running our promotion. So to you folks that have been signing up at the $20 a month level, God bless you. If you sign up at $20 a month, we are going to be sending you a free copy of my book, We the Poisoned, Exposing the Flint Water Cover-Up, signed by yours truly with the personal note. So we've gotten about 15 or so people sign up over the last few weeks at the $20 a month. I think I've sent out so far about 8 or 9 books. So I'm going to the post office.
A great book.
Why, thank you. John Farina, who I gave the book to. When did I give you the book? 6 months ago? And what chapter are you up to?
13.
Yeah, hurry the fuck up. So slow reader. We're going to send you if you sign up at the $20 a month.
Well, he's
level.
always busy doing work, Jordan. What do you expect?
He is very busy doing work, but you know, it's on audio too. He could just listen before bed. All right. And shout out new Status Coup members signed up to our website, Amber and Daniel. Woohoo! All right. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I really appreciate it. Again, we weren't planning on going live, but the news dictates that we had to. And keep on watching. We have other videos up on not just Luigi Mangione. We've been covering Jordan Neely and his murder by Daniel Penny, which Trump and the Republicans have now made him a hero, unsurprisingly. And yes, they went to the football game this weekend, and plenty of other stuff we've covered. So thank you for watching, and please sign up for Zaina's Substack Bullhorn Bulletin, and also follow her on the X machine at Zeynab Day.
Just my name.
And that's we'll put that in the description too. Thanks again. Have a good